You are listening to Grit for Life radio and podcast. I'm your host, Nate Parks. I'm founder of Grit for Life. And we've been taking a look at the acronym STOP. So searching your soul, taking charge of your life, observing yourself and others, and then P is preparing to push and then push. Before we get into it, we got a lot to cover today. I try to keep these to a minimum, about 20 minutes, but we might go over a little bit, maybe not. We'll see. But before we get started, hey, do me a favor. If you are a supporter of military and what military does, so many times, those who have served in the military, including myself, when we get out of the military, we try to find something that we can relate to. The military is a world all its own, and we're closed in it, and we learn all kinds of different things. And then so many times when we come out into the civilian world, we kind of struggle. We kind of struggle trying to find our way. And what we do is we usually revert back to things that we know, that we have a passion for. And if you are someone who enjoys supporting military members, their companies, their endeavors, do me a favor and check out PhaseLineAlpha.com. It's a clothing company that is run by a military brother of mine. He's just getting it up and running. And go check them out, www.phaselinealpha.com. And phase is spelled P-H-A-S-E. Check them out, see what they're doing. They're constantly adding new things every day. But let's talk about Grit for Life. Let's talk about what we've been going through. Like I said, we've been looking at the acronym STOP. This is also this is the podcast that goes along with our free 4-week-long workshop. We do, now maybe you're not familiar with these, we do try to do about 4 of these a year. So about once a quarter. Sometimes we don't quite make it depending on what else is going on, but we try to. And it is a smaller group. If you've never checked us out on Facebook, you can look us up. G.R.I.T, G.R.I.T stands for Getting Ready and Training, but Grit for Life. And then in there we announce that we're doing these 4-week workshops where people can join up. It's not part of the big group. It's more intimate. It's closer. It's more accountability. And it gives you a mind, body, and soul aspect of each day for 4 days. And I promise you, it will change your life. It will change your life if you use the tools that we give you. The problem that we see a lot of times is that people aren't ready for change. That's really what it boils down to. They want change, but they're not ready to put action to that change. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. So as I stated, we've been taking a look at searching your soul, taking charge of your time and your life, observing others and yourself. Today we're going to be looking at the P, which is the last part of the acronym STOP. And P stands for preparing to push and then push. We're really going to be tying all of this together. You see, there's a reason that the P is at the end of our acronym. Well, other than that's how you spell stop, and it would be weird if it was at the beginning or in the middle, because then it wouldn't spell stop. But there's a reason when it comes to what that word means. You see, for us to prepare to push and then push through, we must be fully aware of each step that has come before it. When we tie it all together, we then have a comprehensive understanding of the tools that will carry us forward and give us the momentum to push forward. So what I'm saying is you need to make sure that you've listened to the different other podcasts, but you need to make sure that you're stopping and searching your soul, that you learn how to literally take charge of your time and take responsibility for it. Then the importance of mentorship, observing yourself, observing others. When you put all these together and you get yourself ready to prepare to push and then push forward. So let's take a look at how we use the tools and information that we've already discussed, put it into this powerful package so that you can push forward and claim your time. I'm going to cover a few different steps. In fact, I'm going to cover 10 of them. And so that's what I said. This might be a little lengthy. I'm going to try to get through it fast. Sometimes we talk a little fast to get you all the information that we want to get you. And what I would suggest is pause this. replay it a little bit, or maybe listen to it all the way through, take some notes, and then re-listen to it. One of the things we talk about all the time is when you're looking at motivational things such as YouTube videos or motivational speaking or motivational podcasts, it is important. It's not as important that you always pay attention to every word that's being said. You can play it in the background, and I promise you that your self-conscious will grab a hold of it. And it will play back later on. And you'll be like, where in the world did I hear that? And then it'll click. You heard it on this podcast. So step 1 in preparing to push and then push forward is embrace self-awareness. Once we've learned the art, and this goes back to that soul searching. So this brings in the S for stop when we're looking at the P. You're like, wait a minute, I am so confused. I understand, but bear with me. Once we've learned the art of soul searching, we then become more self-aware of our strengths and our weaknesses. When we do this, then we can exploit the strengths and we can build up the weakness. This gives us an inner understanding of ourselves and our purpose. Once we have this understanding, then this becomes a valuable, powerful tool to use. Being self-aware gives me the edge and gives you the edge on any obstacle that we may come across. That obstacle that we got to prepare for, that obstacle we got to push through. When that obstacle appears, I know my strengths that I have to remove it. I understand how hard it may be, and I'm very aware of the weakness within me that obstacle will test. And when we have that understanding, that's power. In fact, I remember growing up, I loved G.I. Joe. And G.I. Joe used to have the motto, knowing is half the battle. And that's so true, because when we can understand and be self-aware, know our strengths to overcome an obstacle, but also the weaknesses that will be tested, then we know what we're working with. And when we know what we're working with, then we can implement. Then we know where we stand, and we don't feel so helpless. When we face an obstacle without a true in-depth understanding of ourselves, then we are unaware of the tools that we have at our disposal. We're unaware of our strengths. We're unaware of our weaknesses. And many times, both of these things will actually work against us. We tend to give up just as we could be succeeding because we've never allowed ourselves to be pushed beyond the obstacle before. And when I think of this, I guess the best illustration is I run Spartan races. I love the Spartan races. The first time I ever did one, I didn't know what I was getting into. Now, of course, I could go on the website and take a look at all the different things that they talk about, but that really didn't give me an understanding. It prepared me, kind of like a mentor, but it didn't give me an understanding. So when I did my first race, I was kind of scared because I didn't understand my strengths and weaknesses. But then when I did my second one, I knew what obstacles I was going to face. I knew my strengths. I knew which ones would be easy for me. I also knew my weaknesses. So I knew what I needed to work on beforehand and then where I would struggle. Embrace self-awareness, that soul-searching aspect of all of this that we've been talking about. Number 2, our phrase, well, I can't, needs to be turned into, why can't I? By taking charge. That's that T part of it, that taking charge of your life, taking charge of your time. How many times have someone said something like, well, man, you should do this. And you go, man, I just can't. You should go to a gym and work out. I can't. You should motivate and be successful. I can't. You should find some more time. I can't. That I can't automatically sets our mindset in an accepting of obstacle viewpoint. And you say, what? What do you mean by that? When we say I can't, we have already accepted the obstacle is there, the obstacle cannot be beat, and the obstacle is actually the one in charge. Immediately saying I can't, this brings about an obstacle that we must overcome before we can even take charge of overcoming the other obstacle. You see, let's say I'm not a car guy. I really am not. I wasn't raised around cars. I wasn't raised to appreciate cars. I was not raised around mechanics. But let's say that my car breaks down and I don't have the money to fix it except unless I do it myself. But I immediately say I can't. I just can't do that. Now I am actually facing two obstacles. And one of them I put there myself. The first obstacle I have to get across is my mindset. And my obstacle in that mindset of automatically telling myself I have already failed, I have already not succeeded, there is absolutely no way I can do this. And that's rough because what are we looking at? We're looking at an obstacle and then we place another obstacle in front of it, almost in a way to buffer ourselves, just throw our hands up and say, yep, I can't. That is a negative mindset. Negative mindset is a difficult one to overcome. Many of us have it. In fact, today, I was reaching out to some of the individuals who are doing the 4-week workshop, and I asked them, I said, hey, where are you guys at? I need some feedback. How are you all doing? And I had several different members who were doing this that automatically said, well, I'm doing part of it, but I'm just failing at the other parts. And what I had to tell them is stop. Because automatically they had a positive, but they prefaced it with a negative. And when we do that, we are training our brains to automatically go default to negative. And we need to change that and take charge and change that I can't to why can't I? The negative mindset is a difficult one to overcome. And one of the reasons is because it's ingrained in us in all social aspects of our lives. News is focused more on negative than it is positive. We walk in and our boss automatically starts chewing us out. Instead of pointing out the things that we did do great, they're going to point out the things we didn't do great. We have to learn on our own to control our mindset. You've heard me say it. I'm going to say it again. Our response, our responsibility. Your response, your responsibility. Doesn't matter what your boss says. Your response is your responsibility. To change the I can't into the why can't I, we make a powerful move within our life. I can't actually has a very stopping force. As soon as you tell yourself you can't, you're done. You've stopped. You've given up. You haven't even tried. But you've stopped. There's no action within this statement. It is a closed door. Whether that door was open or not, you definitely closed it with the term, I can't. It means we are no longer in charge. And as I stated, it's because we've given the obstacle in our life charge over ourselves and our time. The next time you feel yourself saying, I can't, commit to catching yourself. Stop. Stop for a moment. Search your soul. Take charge by asking, why can't I? Because when we ask this question, it's like kind of starting up the engine of our car. When we ask this question, we're no longer stopping everything. And in fact, we're putting action. You see, I can't is a stopping phrase. There's no action to it. But why can't I demands an answer. So it demands action. When we ask this question, we're placing action to our life. This question requires us to think, why can't I? And come up with a solution. Now, just because you ask this question doesn't mean you actually can right now. You may not be able to. And we're going to look at that point coming up here in a minute. But no matter what, you are required to not just come to a halt by saying I can't. By saying, why can't I? It requires an answer. And in that answer, we can discover ways to move. And when we move, we're no longer stagnant. And in that, we begin to once again take charge of our actions in our lives. Once again, we can embrace that quote, your response, your responsibility. Number 4, I want you to consider now is maybe not the time. But it doesn't mean the time won't ever come. When you're trying to push forward, sometimes maybe now isn't the time. But it doesn't mean the time won't come. I have learned by becoming more self-aware and observing others and taking charge of my life, all the things we've been talking about, that not every obstacle I come across was meant to be overcome at this moment. It very well could be that I'm not finished with this level I'm on. I don't know if you play games or video games, things like that, or board games, but I have some teenagers in my house that love to play different games. And some of the games require their characters to level up. They'll come up to an obstacle in the game, but it's not time for them to actually solve it yet. They have to return back to somewhere. They have to return back to soul searching in an essence. They have to go back the path they were on and find new skills, new things to level up. And then they can come back and overcome that obstacle. So just because you are pushing and you can't overcome the obstacle, maybe it just means that now's not the time. But you do need to come back. You see, life has a rhythm. Life has a pulse that when we embrace it and allow our soul to sink to it, man, we can really begin to feel the vibes of the universe around us, the vibes of our success, and the vibe of who we are. If you've done soul searching, you've taken on the obstacle and sought out a way to change the I can't to I can, or why can't I? And yet it seems that you're still not overcoming that obstacle, right? So again, consider maybe now's not the time. This does not give you permission to not do anything and just wait. What it means is you seek out a new mentor. Maybe search your soul again. Train yourself a new skill. There's still personal growth to be had. And soon, you can discover what you need to level up. And then return to the obstacle. And then, that will be the time. Along with that, when considering it's not the time, but maybe later, that leads us to step 5. Step away, but then return. Learn it's okay to step away sometimes. Take a break. I have to do this. When I mentor people, when I'm doing motivational stuff, there are times that I have to step away and say, I need a break for a second. I take that time out to refresh my spirit, to advance my skill set, and then I come back. And that's what you need to do when facing obstacles, when getting ready to push and then push forward. Face it from a different perspective. Maybe ask someone. Sit down with your mentor. We talked about mentorship in the last podcast. Sit down with your mentor. Put the obstacle in front of them. Maybe they can see it from a different perspective that can help you. Obstacles also can be a safety point. It could be that life's telling you that if you continue down the road that you're going, the bridge is out. You're going to face danger. If I'm driving down a road and there's a sign that says bridge is out, I'm not going to overcome that obstacle and then drive off a cliff. Just don't turn away the moment you feel resistance. There's a road that my family has property in Arizona. And there's a road that in order to get to our property, you have to drive down for probably over an hour. It is a rural road. It is a rugged road. And all the way down this road, there are signs that says, turn back, bridge is out. Turn back, bridge is out. Now, if I did turn back, the moment I saw the first sign, I would never get home. The truth is the bridge is no longer out, but the signs have never been taken down. And that is a clear thing in our life. Learn to be self-aware, to start recognizing the signs that you need to focus on and the signs that you don't need to focus on. The things that will help you be successful or the things that will keep you from danger. When we're able to comprehend the beauty of a fresh perspective mixed with the acronym STOP, we will discover we are able to do more than we ever could have imagined. I was originally going to do all 10 of these tonight in this podcast. We've done 5. And it's sitting at about 20 minutes, which is what I like to keep these podcasts at. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to save the other 5 for tomorrow. But let's review real quick before we close this podcast out. For P is for preparing to push and then to push. Embrace self-awareness. Make sure that you understand your weaknesses and your strengths so that when the obstacles come, you're ready. Change your I can't, which is a stopping phrase, Turn it into an action phrase. Why can't I? This puts power and gives you charge of what you are going through and what you are facing. Then consider that if you have done these things and you still are not able to overcome that obstacle, maybe now's not the time. Step back, learn something new, level yourself up. But then 5, if you step away, make sure that you return with that new advanced skill set, that new perspective. Because in doing this, you are putting yourself on the road to amazing success.